Afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call a special meeting study section to order right now, 1:05 p.m. Wednesday, May 19, 2021. Roll call, please. Oh, yes, roll call,
Yes.
please.
Mayor Ta,
Here?
Vice Mayor Nguyen.
Here.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Doe.
Here.
Councilmember Ho.
Here.
And Councilmember Manzo.
Here.
And Councilmember Menzo, can you please salute to the flag?
Yes, Mayor. Please rise. Place your hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Menzo. So next we have oral communication.
This is the time of the meeting that members of the public may address the City Council regarding only items on this agenda. Unless otherwise extended by a majority of the City Council, speakers are limited to 5 minutes. At this time, I did not receive any requests earlier to speak, but I do have Terry Raines who would like to speak. Yeah. Terry?
Good afternoon. I hope council members are better prepared for this budget study session versus last year's and are ready to ask questions, share concerns, and make suggestions. I am not fond of one-on-one meetings with staff as changes to a budget the entire council is expected to approve in a few weeks. Such meetings might be perceived as serial meetings by the public, and staff might receive conflicting direction from individual council members. Council members should bring their ideas forward to be discussed publicly by the entire council at a regular council meeting so concise direction can be given to staff. The uncertainty of the lasting COVID impacts and Measure SS sunset are just 2 examples of why the city should move back to an annual budget cycle versus a biannual one. Other reasons include 1, limiting the current council's fiscal control to just 1 year, allowing future councils to fully govern. 2, the inability to accurately forecast revenues and expenses that far into the future. 3, a 2-year budget promotes status quo and lessens scrutiny of the organization. And 4, the perceived savings in staff time are quickly eaten up by mid-budget reviews, second-year revisions, appropriations, and the extra time it takes to create a detailed 2-year budget. Westminster has not made significant doable cuts during the pandemic like most other cities have, nor has the city created any new revenue streams. Most cities don't have a potential $13 to $14 million annual revenue loss looming over their heads either. The few positions that were frozen last year, along with part-time salary cuts, have all been restored in this budget. I hope today's presentation includes a 5-year or longer projection of the city's general fund position to paint a clearer picture of where we are headed. Without a voter-approved extension of the 1% local sales taxes, our city will be in dire straits in just a couple of years. A measure to extend that 1% tax can be put on the ballot prior to November 2022 if the city formally declares a fiscal emergency by resolution. Waiting until November 2022 is a bad idea because the city will lose at least $3.5 million or more in the first quarter of 2023 due to timing restrictions built into state law. Bottom line, council must put the measure on the ballot and allow the voters to decide and not make it a personal or political issue. My recommendation is to keep it at 1% and get it on the ballot prior to November 2022, but not this year with the statewide governor recall, maybe the June 2022 primary. The city will receive $23.7 million in relief funding in 2 installments, which is not included in this budget. The money should go into a special revenue fund and initially be spent down against COVID-related revenue losses and unreimbursed expenses. Community input should be solicited as to how to spend any leftover money. More importantly, I don't see any real expenditure reductions in this budget. The city cannot solely rely on outside funding and the voters to extend Measure SS to keep the city going. The financial burden must be shared by all, not just the taxpayers. Optics matter when asking the voters to extend Measure SS. Page and line item questions include page 64, City Clerk, Elections, Contractual, Other. $50,000 in 21-22, then $200,000 in 22-23 for elections and districting. Consultant costs for drawing new district maps needs to be in the 21-22 budget if it's not. General law cities must adopt revised district maps for the 2022 general election no later than April 17th, 2022, 205 days before the election. Page 67, why are HR salaries up 150% in 2021-22 versus the current year estimated actual from 144,000 to 359,000? Haven't we had an interim director all along, or is it something else? Page 74, why are finance admin salaries up 39% in 21-22 versus the current year from 467,000 to 650,000? Same question as HR. Haven't we had an interim director all along, or is it something else? Page 112, why is the cost of purchased water more than doubling in 21-22 versus the current year from 1.3 million to 2.7 million, even though we are pumping 100% of our own well water? Page 120, the footnote approved 10/14/2021 should say 10/14/2020. Page 121, why are CPU part-time salaries at 47% in 21-22 versus the current year from 150,000 to 220,000? That is more than just minimum wage increases. In summary, my recommendations are: 1, make expenditure cuts to this budget prior to considering supplemental requests before final adoption. 2, consider adding a vacancy factor of 2 to 3% against salaries in the budget. 3, consider reverting back to an annual versus biannual budget cycle. 4, begin working on extensive community outreach to renew Measure SS. And 5, consider partnering with HDL to conduct revenue audits to make sure all businesses in the city are licensed and paying all of the fees and sales taxes required. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so do we have any other speaker?
At this time, last call for speakers, please raise your hand. I have none.
Thank you so much. Now I close oral communication, and next will be item fiscal year 21 to 23 budget review. So may I have a staff report?
Yes, Mayor Tom, members of the council, good afternoon. And thank you for taking this time out of your busy schedule. We try to schedule it at 1 o'clock, so do the best we can so we do not interrupt your daily schedules. The way we're going to go with this budget, I am going to go ahead and cover the introduction and then also do over the accomplishments that the staff did this year. PD will go ahead and cover the accomplishments for keeping Westminster safe. I will cover the local economy and quality of life accomplishments. And then also, then I will turn it to Aaron Bax to go ahead and cover the budget, the details. And then we will turn it to Jake No to take us over the CIP, the capital improvement projects that we are asking for. And then I will come back and cover the request for supplemental and do a conclusion. Now, before I begin the presentation, I would like to remind you that today is a study session only. No action is expected. However, if you have any questions, any concerns, any suggestions, we are here to listen. And also the plan is to take this budget to the first meeting in June and not waiting to the last meeting of June for adoption. So in case you have any further questions, further suggestions, that can be deferred to the second meeting in June. So the idea is to ask you to adopt in the first meeting of June, but if you still have concerns, we can always delay it till the second meeting, and then hopefully by the second meeting of June, we have a budget that will be effective July 1st. So that is the plan. With that, this is a 2-year budget, 21-22 and 22-23. However, even by approving this 2-year budget, you are really only committing to 1 year, 21-22. And the reason is, and that's how we've done it over the years, is that we would come back as a mid-year, give you an update how things is happening. And also the second year of the 2-year budget does not have the capital improvement projects in it and doesn't have the supplemental. But I like to do the 2 years, so you have at least a 1 year look ahead of how the numbers are looking and what is coming up. But by no means we are connected to that and restricted to that. So that's it. So when we adopt, we will be committing to 1 year, which is 21-22. Okay. So Erin, you want to go ahead and share your slides now? Okay. So thank you, Erin. So again, this is a 21, 22, and 22, 23 budget. So please, next page. Okay, now I'd like to turn it to PD to cover their Keeping Westminster Safe accomplishments in this current fiscal year.
All right, do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So just highlighting 20 and 21, Keeping Westminster Safe. We retained the services of our Emergency Operations Center consultant, Robert Acosta, in the early phases of the pandemic. That was to ensure that the latest public health information being released by the federal, state, and county governments were reaching the city. And he's been a huge help in making sure that we are up to speed with OSHA, the health department, and that we're in compliance early on with the whole pandemic. Our homeless liaison team, our HLOs, is actively involved in an outreach program to vaccinate our homeless population, and that is coming soon. They are working with that. Our Emergency Operations Communications Center handles approximately 130,000 phone calls and creates around 82,000 calls for service in the computer-aided dispatch CAD system, which we have. And this doesn't include the calls that are not dispatched, that are general calls that sometimes will find their way to either 911 or the general line in dispatch. The Westminster Police Department participates in a countywide annual regional alert OC test each year. The objective is to test the alert's capability and the effectiveness to deliver large volume of emergency notifications to the public during major times of crisis, such as earthquakes and things like that. Implemented programs to equip public safety personnel with PPE. We reduced the size of patrol units. We moved to a platoon-style schedule during the onset of the pandemic to keep people safe, and moved to electronic service and dispatch interactions wherever possible to maintain a high level of public services while reducing the possibility of community-level spread.
Now I'll come back to the accomplishments again to continue for the current fiscal year. Staff has repaired over 1,600 potholes citywide. And if you recall, and this is all done by staff, by the way, if you recall, last year or so, we had to bring a contractor in to help us, but we would do that as needed, but most of the time, those are done in-house by city staff. Removed 2874 locations of graffiti. And I'll tell you from my witnessing what's going on, this is going very well. I know last week I would report a location and 15 minutes later I go by, it's done. So we're doing well there, and we please report anything you see, we'll jump on it right away. We picked up 913 abandoned items in the public right away, such as mattresses, couches, tables, chairs, things like that, that people, leave in the public right of ways and alleys. We replaced 42 damaged sidewalk locations. Again, all that's done by city staff in-house. We planted more than 100 new trees in the public right of way. Upgraded to LED lighting systems at Frank G. Fry, Westminster, and Park West Parks. Again, the intent is to save energy as a result of that, and that's going very well. Installed 39 new water services and 3 fire services. Those are mainly related to ADUs. Every new ADU comes in, they request a water service for that. We repaired 23 service leaks and 3 water main breaks. We had one Monday, I believe we had 2 of them Monday along Westminster Boulevard, but our staff is on top of that and we do very well really in this area. We exercised 1,900 water valves and serviced 294 fire hydrants. Again, in order to ensure that you have a good water system when the need comes to shut down water lines in case of water break, your valves has to be ready for that. So that's why we exercise those valves. And as you can tell, we did exercise 1,900 of them. We pumped 100% of well water and saved 80,000 in imported cost. And that's because really it's always cheaper to pump out of the ground versus buy. But the reason OCWD let us pump 100% because of the PFAS issue that some cities are finding in their wells. So therefore they're shutting their wells down. So they have extra money, extra water to share. So we are taking advantage of that and then pumping 100%, saving a lot of money. As you can see, the estimate here is about 80,000. Mendes Tribute Monument Park is currently under construction with an estimated completion in October of this year. Completed the construction of Rancho Road Landscape Project that was on the books for a while and it's finally completed. Looks very nice. Completed the construction of McFadden Avenue from Beach Boulevard to Magnolia Street and 4 residential street segments. Completed the design of 3 miles of arterial streets. And then all these construction special streets, the design and construction managements are done in-house. We don't hire consultants to do that for us. We design them in-house, we inspect them in-house. We just hire the contractor, of course, to build. So that's kudos to our engineering team here. And then also completed the design of Mendes Hoover Trail Improvement Project. That I know this has been out there for a while, but we've been having issues with the railroad company. And then finally, I think we are in the final stages. So this project should be going out to bid soon, anytime now, I would say. Next, please. Another project that's been on the books and we've done almost completed is the Garden Grove Boulevard, Edward and Trask, to have some bikeways along the street, some trees and all that. That's also been held back due to COVID and due to some Caltrans comments that also staff is on top of this, and we are almost there again to go out to bid for this project. We opened the 50-unit De La Rosa Affordable Housing Project. Also, the 65-unit Westminster Crossing Affordable Housing Project is almost there, almost completed. We obtained $850,000 in grant funds for the year to support advanced planning and economic development efforts. And that shows that really every grant out there, we go after it. Any grant we know about, we definitely will go after that. We have entitled 150 ADUs. That's been a hot subject, as you all know. It's been added a large workload on our building and planning divisions. And then also we implemented a permanent ADU ordinance, as you remember, adopting that. The first phase of Bolsa Row, which is a big project, which is the first phase is the 200 apartment units, is on track to be completed in 2021. Opened approximately 1,400 CPU cases focused on physical blight. The intent is to clean the city, of course, as we all know that. We conducted quarterly sweeps for overgrown vegetation, inoperable vehicle, and remedied 50 graffiti cases. Again, it's under the CPU division that the intent is to clean the city. Provided a rental assistance program to help over 200 families utilizing federal funds. We conducted both a business loan and a business grant program to support local businesses during economic shutdowns. Developed and implemented a telecare call program to stay connected to seniors, and distributed 3,200 meals weekly to seniors, and created a virtual recreation and teen centers, and also co-hosted community drive-through food distribution event serving 571 families. Next page, please. And also staff was able to manage to redesign the city website for ease of use. We've been receiving a lot of compliments on the new website. Westminster Insider Community Newsletter emailed twice a month to keep community informed of what's going on. Held virtual events like Christmas tree lighting, Black April to stay involved during pandemic. And then also today, as we speak, I know the Memorial Day preparation is underway to have a virtual event for that too. We launched a new software to streamline development process, communication between divisions and other public portal for project tracking, which this should all help in managing projects and keep things going. Designed and redesigned processes to accommodate COVID safety practices, because we would done a lot in this area here to definitely increase the safety. Munis payroll and financial ERP system deployed. Implemented queue-less deployment to accommodate online appointment scheduling and seeing citizens during shutdown, because City Hall is still shut down, so we are seeing people by appointment only. So this system helped a lot in doing so. A new GIS system that enables different integrations. Homelessness app to keep track of homeless field interviews, mapping the irrigation system through the city, and housing element layer. Next, please. And now I'd like to turn it to Erin to go ahead and cover the budget details for us.
Okay, thank you, Marwan. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Council members. I'm Erin Bax, Interim Finance Director. This proposed two-year budget will cover the city's operations from the period starting July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2023. This is proposed as there is still opportunity for council to add, delete at your discretion. I'm going to focus on fiscal year 21-22, but a two-year budget gives us a chance to see where our city is headed based on current costs and trends. Fiscal year 2021 started out with the uncertainty of the financial impacts of the pandemic. Revenue estimates reflected the adoption of the cost recovery schedule in fiscal year 1920 and the fourth year of the voter-approved local funding measure. The adopted budget included reduced contractual costs, reductions in services, a closed capital project, 6 frozen full-time positions, and part-time wage reductions. The fiscal year 2021 adopted budget included a use of reserves in the amount of $1.9 million. Current estimates show revenue coming in $3.3 million over budgeted amounts and expenditures coming in $1.9 million under budget from reduced service levels due to the pandemic and position vacancies. We are recommending a fiscal year 2021 transfer of $1.5 million to fund 21-22 street projects and $250,000 of savings to one or both of our pension and OPEB, other post-employment benefit, Section 115 trust accounts at the city manager's discretion. The current projected contribution to reserves is $2.2 million for 2021. So now we're going to move on to the 21-23 recommended budget. Both budget years require the use of reserves to be balanced. Year 2 because of the loss of the locally controlled funding. 21-22 uses $943,000 and 22-23 has a projected deficit of $10.2 million. The city's local funding measure revenue is budgeted at $13.7 million in fiscal year 21-22. The local funding measure expires December 31st, 22, so the fiscal year 22-23 only includes 6 months or $7.1 million of locally generated revenue. Expense increases are brought on by annual contract increases, primarily in the public safety and emergency response sectors. Currently, over 75% of Westminster's general fund budget is spent on public safety, including emergency response, fire, and disaster preparedness services. General fund revenues are budgeted at $66.7 million. As you can see, taxes make up the vast majority of these revenues at almost 86%. This is followed by charges for services at 8%, investment and rental at 3%, licenses and permits at 2%, and fines, other revenues, and intergovernmental at less than 1%. The city is in the process of updating our fee schedule. Any increases or decreases from this that is recommended by the fee study will be brought back to the council for approval in June. So to further break down our largest tax or our largest revenue source, taxes at 57.2 million, property taxes is the largest at 32% or 18.1 million. Most of the revenue in this category, most of the revenue in the property tax category comes from the property tax in lieu of the vehicle license fee. And that's budgeted at 11.2 million. Sales tax at 30% or 17.4 million is the second largest, followed by the locally generated revenue measure at 24% or 13.7 million. It should also be noted with this category that it is driven by the economy, requires a vote of the Westminster citizens to enact changes, and of course, the local revenue measure has an end date of December 31st, 2022. With the end date falling in the second year of the 2-year budget, we have included only half a year of revenue, or $7.1 million. This drop contributes to the larger use of reserves of $10.2 million to balance the second year. So this is a comparison of our sales tax for the regular sales tax from fourth quarter 19 to fourth quarter 20. And I've showed this to you before, but it shows you the breakdown of the categories. And sales tax was one of the most impacted by the uncertainty of the coronavirus. And fourth quarter 2020 sales were down 2.3% from the fourth quarter 19. The hardest hit categories were general consumer goods down 15.9%, restaurants down 24.3%, and fuel and service stations down 35.6%. These were offset by the large increase in the state and county pools of 31.1%. So this is the local revenue measure, fourth quarter 19 compared to fourth quarter 20. And this is collected a little bit differently than the general sales tax, and it's only down 1.9% over this period. In a district add-on tax, the place of sale is the address of delivery, so there is no pool allocation. In addition, there are several online entities with fulfillment centers in California. In these situations, the sales tax revenue goes to the city who has the warehouse, but in a local measure, that revenue goes to the address of delivery, so it stays in the city. If the fulfillment center is outside California, the revenue is allocated through the pool, but if it is in California, the city loses the revenue generated on the sales tax, but still receives the revenue generated from the local measure. So update on our local measure. Voters approved the local funding in November of 2016, and the city began collecting this 1% in April of 2017, providing much needed revenue to cover an ongoing general fund operating deficit. This locally controlled revenue source is set to sunset on December 31st of 2022. This funding has allowed the city to avoid bankruptcy and to be able to continue providing services to Westminster. With only half a year of revenue in fiscal year 22-23, the general fund is projected to have the 10.2 million deficit. Local funding has provided the funds needed to make basic repairs to Westminster streets, including $6 million to repair and maintain roads, hire and recruit police officers, as well as additional code enforcement and park personnel. Local funding helps stabilize Westminster's finances, providing 3 years of positive ending fund balances without the use of transfers from other funds, fiscal year 17-18, 18-19, and 19-20, and is projected to do the same for the current year, 2021. Local funding has allowed the city to further stabilize finances and pay down pension debt, saving the city millions of dollars in the long run, including providing for some of the funding for our Section 115 trust accounts. While the majority of the funding came from RDA dissolution proceeds, the city also used savings to bring the account balances of $4 million for the pension-related trust and $4.4 million for the OPEB-related trust as of March 31st of the current year. The fiscal year 21-22 budget is showing an ending general fund balance of $31.4 million after a use of $943,000 in reserves to balance the budget. Of this amount, $17.2 million or 55% is unrestricted. Another $11.5 million or 36% is set aside for our emergency reserve, and the remaining $2.7 million or 9% is set aside for any potential redevelopment clawbacks. The fiscal year 22-23 budget is showing an ending general fund balance of $21.2 million after a use of $10.2 million in reserves to balance the budget. Of this amount, $6.4 million or 30% is unrestricted. Another $12 million or 57% is set aside for emergency reserve, and the remaining $2.7 for any potential clawbacks. These reserves are set per the city's general fund or the city's fund balance policy. This is a 5-year projection of the general fund revenue and expenditures. Local funding is bringing the city about $13 million per year in general fund revenue. The local measure expires December 31st of 22, so the 22-23 includes $7.1 million for 6 months, which is why the revenue drops in that year. The last 2 years do not include this local funding measure. The adopted budget for 2021 is $65.6 million, but expenditures are trending to come in at $63.7 million or $1.9 million under due to COVID-related reductions and vacancies. The majority of the expenditure increases in the projected years is related to contract increases. And the last 3 years also include $1.5 million annually for street projects. This slide shows the general fund projected ending fund balance or reserve balance for the next several years. The current fiscal year, 2021, is estimated to end with $32.4 million in reserve. The general fund is completely out of money by 24-25 without cuts and with the loss of the local measure. So this slide shows our CalPERS cost projections, and a large portion of the general fund budget is CalPERS costs. The rates that drive our annual payment requirement are based on an interest rate assumption of 7%, which is the dark, I think it's a dark blue line. Due to lower than expected returns, return uncertainty, and extreme return fluctuations, the CalPERS board will consider dropping the discount rate to 6%, which is the red line on this slide, at their meeting in November of 21. The impact of this drop to the city of Westminster is an additional $5 million annually. This is something we will continue to watch. If the interest rate assumption is dropped, we'll start seeing the increased costs in fiscal year 23-24. As currently projected with the 7% discount rate, the blue line, our 23-24 costs are projected at $15.7 million. With a 6% discount rate, that same year, those costs would be $21 million. The water fund is the city's next largest fund and receives most of the budgeted $19.5 million in revenue from charges for service. A majority of the $17.4 million in expenditures are in pump and basin assessment, salaries and benefits, and purchased water. All internal service funds have a minimum $500,000 in unrestricted fund balance, with the exception of the risk management and workers' compensation benefits fund. And that one is set to reach that $500,000 soon. Excess fund balance will be used before internal service fund rates are increased. The funding for our 21-22 capital projects is shown on this slide. So $1.5 million from the general fund transferred in 2021, $650,000 from park dedication, $2.7 million gas tax, $1.3 million Measure M, $60,000 municipal lighting, $1 million from CDBG, $2.5 million from water, and $120,000 from building maintenance. And then I'm going to let our interim public works director, Jake No, present this section.
Thanks, Aaron. Good afternoon, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. My name is Jake No. I'm the interim public works director, city engineer. I will go over the information for the proposed CIP project for fiscal year 2021-2022. So I will start with the project that listed under the park dedication funds. The irrigation system improvement of Margie L. Rice and College Parks. This project is to upgrade the irrigation valve and sprinkler heads. With this upgrade, this will improve the water efficiency at these two parks. The next project is this splash pad play equipment replacements. We intend to replace some of the old water features at the splash pad at Siglet Park. The next project is tennis and basketball courts resurfacing and fencing. Currently at the Boca Chica Park and Park West Park, we have a tennis court that we need to have the resurfacings. And this project intends to do that, as well as installing a new chain link fence and windscreen for the tennis court at Boca Chica Park. The next project under this fund is playground replacement at Newcastle Park. This project is recommended by the Westminster Park Master Plan that we are going to be replacing the playground equipments as well as the rubberized surfacings. The next funding is municipal lighting funds. This is the LED lighting conversion at Boca Chica and Park West Park. Over the years, the lighting system at the city parks that has been replacing or upgraded to LED. So this project will convert the existing lighting system for the tennis court and the basketball courts at Boca Chica and Park West Park to LEDs in order to save the energy. The next funding is water utilities funds. The first two projects are the regular preventive maintenance projects for the city water wells and water system. We are going to be doing the repainting of the 2 8 million gallon reservoir. This is the second year of the 6-year contributions. Our water reservoir was constructed back in 2003, and they're in need of to be repainted in the near future. So this is the reservoir right at the corner of Hoover and Hazard. The next project under the water utility is the cathodic protection of the West Orange County Water Board. Again, this is the second of the 8-year contributions. This project is to prevent the corrosion of the water lines that connecting the West Orange County Water Board and the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And the the West Orange County Water Board consists of 4 cities: Huntington Beach, Seal Beach, Garden Grove, and Westminster. So this is the payment for the Westminster share, which is about 25% of the total project costs. The last project under water utility is to drill a new water well. And our city water wells 6, which is located in the area of Hazard and Bouchard, exceeded its expected service life. There's a lot of damage for the casing, so we start seeing a lot of pumping of the materials that go into the system. So we plan to take that well out of commission soon. So this project is to fund a new water well, which will be drilled in the east side of the city to replace the water well 6. The next one is building maintenance fund that you can see right there, the boiler replacement of road center. So one of the units on top of the road centers that's exceeding its service life. Again, this is a project to replace that boiler unit. The next one is a battery backup system replacement of police departments. So this is to replace the existing battery that we used for the secondary backup system, just in case if we have a power outage or our backup generator doesn't turn on, it's still providing the services to the essential function at our police department. Next slide, please. On this slide, it shows the different funding sources for the street improvement projects. So the total amount of from the general fund, the Measure M2, the highway user tax, known as the gas tax, and the CDBGs, the total around $5.9 million will put toward the street improvements. And this project will improve about 4 segments of arterials street and 45 residential street segments. So next slide, please. You can see the street that listed on this map here. I can go over the arterial real quick. That first one, Edward Street between Westminster Boulevard and Trask Avenue. The second one is Westminster Boulevard between Magnolia Street and Bouchard Street. The third one is Hazard Avenue between Brookhurst Street and Brewer Street. This is a joint project with City of Garden Grove to improve this segment of Hazard Avenue. And the last segments of arterial is McFadden Avenue between Brookhurst Street and Ward Street. So on top of those 4 arterials, we also have 45 residential street segments. As you can see, it's all spread out different part of the city. And all of these improvements are recommended by our city's payment management system. The last funding source is the CDBG that, and again, it's one of the projects that included part of the street improvements. The next project, the Liberty Park Playground Improvement Project, is installing a new playground equipment with a rubberized surfacing. And again, this is also recommended by the park, the Westminster Park Master Plan. And the last project under CDBG fund is a Neighborhood Pride Rental Rehab Program. This is the project to fund the code enforcement and other housing element within the CDBG area. And that concludes my CIP report.
Okay, now I'll take over again. This is the supplemental request. As Aaron mentioned earlier, those are not part of the budget. That means there are some new stuff that we are asking for the next fiscal year. The first one under my department, as you know, the assistant city manager position remains to be vacant. And I wanted to take some time really to assess what kind of need I have or I need to really what to do with that position. And then I really find a need for something to do with economic development. I know we have a lot of opportunities out there to do something with economic development. We have the mall going on as a specific plan for the mall. We have things happening in Little Saigon. We have some stores closing down throughout the city. So I need somebody to become proactive in the community and then start to bring some new businesses and new developments, talking to property owners to kind of join lots and then do things like that. So I thought that position would serve us well at this time if I can get an economic development manager in there / assistant to the city manager, especially at the beginning when we hired this person. And my plan is to come July 1st is to go out and advertise for the position. Is to, especially at the initial stages, we're not going to have enough work for that person to do. So I can use definitely the rest of the time to help me in the city manager's office. So that's why I'm asking for a combination of those two, economic development manager / assistant to the city manager. The second one is we currently have a council secretary that works part-time, and we see a need to make that position full-time because in the afternoon, per se, we don't have coverage, especially for callers, Vietnamese-speaking callers who calls in asking for things to speak to council, mayors, and so forth. So we see a need to make that position full-time. And again, that position will be shared with the city manager's office and then also with the city clerk. So Christine and myself will coordinate and see how best we can put that position to use between the two departments. And then the next one is next third and fourth comes from PD. I'd like to ask PD to cover those two items, please. Darren, are you going to do that?
I believe Margaret Kazone is going to discuss that.
Okay. Is she with us? Oh, okay, there's Mom. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
She may be having problems with her computer. Do we want to come back to that?
Yeah, okay, we'll come back to that. So let me skip that. Then the next item is we have a transportation manager / city traffic engineer position that's currently held by Adolfo Zeta. And then also an assistant city engineer that is currently vacant. We need to take care of those two positions because when we did the classification study, there was some changes that needed to happen to the job description and the salary ranges that did not happen. And then I think now is the perfect time to go ahead and correct the job descriptions and the salary levels for those two positions. Definitely, it's time to do so.
Before we move on,
Yes,
I just have a quick question.
sure.
Okay, on the same slide, supplemental requests, why do I hear no? Okay. Park maintenance. Mended Memorial Park, 34,300. Don't you have any NELA from the grant that you're receiving?
Yes, but what we're talking about here is the maintenance after the
I
park
know,
is built.
Yeah. But is there, that money won't cover us for a couple years?
I don't believe so. I believe the grant that we have covers the construction only, and then maintenance is to be done by the city. So that's why we're anticipating some need for that money, and also for Ranch Road, the one we just finished installing. And then, you know, this happened in the past where, and we would miss it. We would build a new median per se and all that, and then we forgot to budget maintenance money for it. And then during the fiscal year, we would have to kind of, you know, do the best we can. But now we're starting to ask for maintenance money right after the project is completed, or even before, if it's gonna kick in.
Okay.
All right. Mavic, are you ready? Yeah, there you go. Oh, still can't hear her. Okay, I'll continue going. Going into the park maintenance again, one additional part-time employee for park cleaning and bulk item picking up. We found out over the year that part-time help in this area is really great for us. Very effective, especially over the weekends and after hours and so forth. So we are asking for one additional part-timer to do that for us. Again, as Councilwoman Kimberly Ho just mentioned about the maintenance for Ranch Road and Mendez Memorial. So we need this much money to maintain that. For planning, under the planning division is asking for contract planner for 6 months, 30 hours per week, again, to cover the additional workload that we are seeing as a result of the ADUs and other development. Next is the mental health coordinator. I'd like Darren to cover that, please.
Okay. So the idea behind this is we're asking for 2 part-time mental health coordinators that will work with our homeless liaison officers. This will afford us the opportunity to have coverage, hopefully 7 days a week, and work directly with the homeless liaison officers. Also work with our faith-based group in order to provide services for our homeless. And this is also, again, working with CityNet as well. And this is covered under our BSCC funds. So this will be covered for, I'm not too sure how much money is in there right now, but again, this is part-time wages. And the goal is to have 2 part-time coordinators that will be housed in our police department that can work directly with our homeless liaison officers, and also a member from the Orange County Health, or the Orange County Mental Health Department too.
Okay, thank you, Darren.
Absolutely.
The next one is the upgrade of one Water Tech 2 to Water Tech 3. Currently, we don't have Water Tech 3s, we have Water Tech 2s, but we've noticed lately that one of those positions really had to have more technical abilities, especially in handling what we call is the SCADA system. And the SCADA system is a computer system housed at the yard where we manage and control the pumping schedule for wells, the tank storage levels, water levels up and down, and then which well we turn on and off. So we believe that one of those Tech 2s needs to be a Tech 3. So we're definitely recommending that upgrade, and this most likely will be an internal promotion to be open for everyone inside who qualifies and interested to apply for that. This is a water fund, will have no impact to the general fund. And then the motor pool upgrade, public works supervisor, the fleet to garage superintendent. If you recall, probably 6-7 months ago, we had Kevin Beach. He was over building and the fleet as a manager. He retired about 6-7 months ago. So I decided not to fill that position. And then I decided to take care of fill the vacancy from within. So I upgraded Adolfo Andrada in the building division. And then I'm recommending that we upgrade the public works supervisor held by Scott Masterwine to be a garage superintendent. He's been with us for many years working in the garage. He's definitely qualified for that position. And then the last item is the climate tracking and monitoring energy efficiency. Those are certain modifications to the buildings we have to have a better, more efficiency in the heating and cooling of our buildings. Okay, now we go back to PD about those two items. Darren, you want to try that?
Yeah, let me see if Mabek is on the line here. If she's not, then I will do my best.
All right.
I can read the descriptions that Mavic sent.
Okay. So Erin, go ahead, read the description, and maybe Darren can comment on that, or the chief.
Okay. The assistant record supervisor will assist with general supervision and coordinates and supervises the activities of records and other personnel and other duties as required. Assist with the I don't know what that is, mandatory training, documentation, and assisting with maintaining historical records for the agency. Assist with the criminal justice system, including DAs and courts, automated systems for processing daily reports and officer subpoenas. Assist with record management system, ongoing upgrades. Assigns record personnel scheduled shifts per department MOU and county mandates. Assist with developing and implementing written training programs following post record guidelines, and generates data and compiles mandatory statistical monthly reporting.
Okay, thank you, Erin. I think we have the chief and Darren. They can maybe explain that.
Marwan, good afternoon. I think I'm
okay.
on.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, I apologize everyone for the sound issues. But
no problem.
Just wanting to speak to the two titles of job creation. So the first one is Assistant Records Supervisor. This is to allow for succession planning, as well as increasing training with elevated knowledge and expertise than what we currently have in our records specialist pool. This will be an internal competitive process that we plan to have, and with the eventual retirement that we're going to experience in various positions, I think it's a good idea to plan for success. As far as the part-time record specialist, we are working on a very lean staff of 3 full-time record specialists when we typically have 5. So supplementing with a part-time record specialist would allow for more continuity in our operations, and also without the added cost of benefits and other added costs if it were a full-time position. So that too will be competitively recruited.
Okay, thank you, Mavic.
You're welcome, Marwan.
So Erin, any others? Okay, next page, please. Okay, and now the conclusion. As we mentioned, this is a 2-year budget, and will cover the city's operation starting July 1st of this year through June 30, 2023. However, as I mentioned earlier, we are really only committing to 1 year, and then second year, we can still do the mid-year review and then also come back to you next year for that year to do the CIPs, revise the revenues, expenditures, and all the any changes that will come through. Supplemental requests are not included in this document, as we mentioned. Then also the fiscal year 21-22 is showing almost 900,000 in deficit, which would be covered by reserve, of course, and 22-23 as of now showing a deficit of 10.2 million, assuming that the local funding measure will expire in December 2022. Both years will require the use of reserves, as I just mentioned, to be balanced, reducing the funding left to the city in case of an emergency. As you know, currently we have $32 million in reserve, and then staff will continue to monitor revenue and expenditures monthly to provide council with quarterly updates, as we have been doing. We have been giving you quarterly updates. So we will definitely keep an eye on what's going on, and then we will report to council on any findings that we can find. I believe that's it, right, Aaron?
Yes, that's it.
Okay, so now we would like to open it for questions, please.
I want to thank city manager and all department head for your presentation. And now this is time for question or any concerns from member of the city council. All right, I hear none. So we don't have any question or concerns, and if we don't have anything else, so meeting is adjourned, and next regular meeting will be on Wednesday, May 26, 2021 at 7 p.m. Meeting adjourned. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.